There are only three things that you need if you want to add something new to your life. If you have a lot of things going on and you want to add something new, there's a new pillar in your life, there's a new thing that you want to accomplish or want to achieve. There's only three things that you need, and I want to share those with you right now. The first thing that you need is to realize that everything in your life has a place. Imagine this big pie, okay? You have this big pie, you have a bunch of things that you're doing. You have your relationships, you have your hobbies, you have your work, you have your side hustle, you have all these things. Let's say, for example, you want to add a new side hustle to your life. You want to have the ability to make income yourself. You have a job, but you want to make your own sustainable income. Okay, so that's what we're going to be focusing on. In order to have that happen, the first thing, maybe counterintuitively, but the first thing that you need to think about is the fact that you have all these other pillars that are really, really good, and you need to spend time enjoying those. You need to spend time, if you have really good relationships, you have a really good girlfriend or boyfriend, your parents are awesome, your friends are awesome, whatever. You need to spend time enjoying those things. And the reason why you need to do that is because that will keep you going for number two. Okay, so number two is focusing on the inputs and not the outputs. So I've made this mistake. In fact, I made this mistake super recently. I make this all the time, where I'm so fixated on this output goal, this kind of end result, this thing that I want at the end of all the work, right? And it could be a subscriber count. It could be amount of dollars in your bank account. It could be people who have signed up to your newsletter. It could be all these things. And by the way, I've had all of these personal things myself. This is why I'm sharing this with you. I just actually hopped off a call with my personal coach and we spoke about this. And this is something that felt so valuable that I wanted to share it with you. So the second thing here is, again, focusing on the inputs and not the outputs. And one thing you want to add to this is consistently focusing on the inputs. And so I mentioned this before on my channel, but you need to have consistent things that you do that are working towards a particular output. Okay, so let's say you want to grow a YouTube channel, right? Like in my case, this is what we're doing. I know that I need to make a certain amount of content regularly of value so that it actually helps and it actually builds the audience, it builds the community, because I'm saying things that are actually of value to people. And that's one thing that I really strive to do with this channel. So I'm focusing on consistent inputs, which means I can't just upload a video once a year. That's not consistent, right? I have to be way more consistent than that. And it's not about the subscribers or the people who pay for a product or whatever. It's not about any of that. It's about how many times you can show up in a consistent manner, right? And so you focus on the inputs and eventually the outputs are a natural result. They're the natural byproduct of inputs, right? You can't help but get bigger biceps if you go to the gym and you train biceps and you eat a caloric surplus. You can't help but get those results, okay? So if you're constantly like, oh, my biceps aren't 19 inches or 20 inches, or I don't even know what inches biceps can be or should be or whatever. My point is that if you're focusing constantly on that and you spend all your energy drained in that, you're not doing the consistent inputs. You're not actually going to the gym and doing the things like the bicep training and eating the calories or whatever. You're not doing the things that will naturally get you the output, the result that you want, okay? So again, the first thing is you need to have time and energy invested in the things that are already going right in your life. Don't just completely say no to those things and just be entirely 100% focused on one thing. Don't do that. You're going to burn out. And even if you don't burn out, you're not going to enjoy what you're doing anyway. Because if all you're doing is focusing on the part of the pie, the part of your life that isn't kicking off all of the feelings and the value that you want right away, then the time you're actually spending doing it, you're not enjoying it that much because you're not immersed in something that's already giving you the benefits that you wanted when you started it, right? Or that you just fortuitously had in your life because you were born to a good family or you had good friends that entered your life or your work is amazing or whatever it may be, right? Your hobbies are super fun. So whatever. But then the third thing that you need to have is time in your life where you consider that the outputs are actually connected to the inputs. Okay, so this is very special. You need to make sure you're not doing work for work's sake. So in that second step, that second pillar that you have, right? You're doing consistent inputs. But let's use the example of you want to run a marathon. Now, let's say to start, you're really overweight. And so you just felt like, in order for me to run a marathon one day, I need to get in shape somehow. So I'm just going to do whatever is the most appealing to me. So at the time when you started, what was appealing to you was going and lifting weights, right? You're pumping iron, whatever. That was way more fun than doing cardio. And you did that so that you could lose some body weight and eventually get into running and then run a marathon. Well, if 2, 3, 4 years down the road, all you're doing is lifting weights, like while that's great, that's not actually connecting you to the desired outcome that you had initially, which was to run a marathon, right? If all you're doing is bench press all day, every day, it's not going to get you any better really at running a marathon. And so you need specific time to consider, okay, like are my inputs actually connected to the outputs? Now, I would go as far as to say that that's maybe the only time that you actually want to consider your outputs that much is the time that you specifically set aside to do so. So guys, again, this is all so that you can add something new to your life. This is the purpose of this video is how do I add something new to my life? In a new quadrant. Let's say I might have relationships, might have money, might have health, whatever, right? These different areas. How do I add something new and build something new? So it might be a side hustle, it might be like working out, it might be whatever it might be, right? you need these three things. The first thing, again, I'll remind you, the first thing that you need to do is allow yourself to enjoy the other elements. Don't just constantly focus on one, shut out the other elements, and just shut out the things that are already established for being good contributions to your mental health and your well-being and whatever. Don't shut those out. You need those. Now, why do you need those? Well, why do you need to do those? It's the second pillar. Because you need to make consistent inputs in order to get any outputs as their natural result. Okay? You need consistent inputs. But you're going to burn out. You're not going to want to do consistent inputs. And trust me, I've been there. In fact, I kind of am there right now, to be completely honest. And that's why this came about, like I mentioned in my coaching call. But this gave me so much value that I had to share it. So again, you immerse yourself in these things that you already enjoy, which allows you to do consistent inputs, right? And those two words are important, consistent and input. It needs to be consistent because if it's not consistent, it's not going to bear any fruit, right? It's like you go into the gym once a year. You're not going to get the arms you want. You're not going to get the legs you want, the chest you want, whatever. It has to be consistent. But it also has to be input focused. Because if you're constantly focused on the output, you're going to get demoralized. You're going to get demotivated. Quickly. Really quickly, I might add. You need to understand that things take time, especially good things take time. And that's a platitude, but it's a platitude for a reason. You need patience. And I'm telling you this because this is what I'm terrible at. I'm good at a few things. I'm happy to say I'm good at a few things. One thing that I'm not good at is patience. Really not good at it. So, consistent input. And then the final thing is actually having time in your life where you allow yourself to look at the outputs. And that might be with a friend or a coach or someone who's designed, but by design in your life, there to help you do things. And again, like I said, friends, really anybody that's really important to you, that you trust, or it could just be by yourself with a pen and paper. Could be. But look at your outputs and consider, okay, if my goal, again, is to run a marathon, is me doing 15 sets a week of bench press getting me towards that goal? Well, to start, maybe it was, but that's the whole point of regularly considering the connection between your inputs and your outputs, is so that on the time that you realize, like on the day that you realize, hey, this isn't actually connected, this isn't really doing much for me by way of getting me to my actual end goal, then you can readjust. And you can readjust and consider, okay, what should I now do for those consistent inputs, that pillar 2? What should I be doing that actually gets me towards that goal? So now it might actually be regular running practices, going for longer and longer runs, or timing your runs, or whatever it is. I'm not a marathon runner. I don't pretend to be, but you understand the analogy. So these are the 3 things, again, that will help you get something new into your life. When you want progress in something, when you want to make progress on a new thing, and maybe your schedule is hectic, or you have all these other elements, and you're just trying to kind of get the last sort of pillars to stand. How do you do that? Again, I'll repeat this one final time. And you might have heard it so many times, you're like, oh, I'm going to click off this video. And honestly, maybe that's what you should do. But I'm repeating it because I know how important this is. And if I were you, I'd listen again. So you want to make sure that the other elements of your life, if you have good friends, spend time with them, right? Continue to do that. Continue to put that in your life, because that will keep you charged up to do number 2, pillar 2, which is consistent inputs towards the thing that you're trying to build. Okay? Consistent inputs. Consistent and input. Consistent input. Consistent input. Right? And then finally, you want to allow time to consider whether or not those consistent inputs are not just spinning your wheels doing work for work's sake. It's real, genuine, productive work towards the end goal. Starting a business, finding a relationship, a romantic relationship, improving a current existing relationship, building a physique, whatever it might be. Okay? So guys, I hope that was of some value to you. That came directly out of my high-level coaching call that I have with my coach, who helps me with my stuff. So giving that to you for free, and I hope you enjoy it, obviously. So thank you so much for watching. My name is Spencer with Must Become. Always remember that your potential is your obligation, and so what you can become, you must become.